Great googly moogly troglodytes, we've got the Frank Zappa SG Special Roxy today. This was a limited edition in 2013 and there was 400 made. This is essentially a guitar that looks like Frank Zappa's that he used in 1973 at the Roxy Theater in Hollywood and was also then used on the Roxy and Elsewhere album. So this thing got the name Roxy because of where it was played. Now his was an early 60s SG special that clearly was modified. Initially it would have had two P90 pickups in it, but they were routed for humbuckers. I'm really not quite sure what the story of the headstock is, but it is a natural kind of white color. Being a special, that means it would have originally had a wrap tail piece instead of a regular bridge. And it also had a Maestro-style lyre vibrola for slight tremolo usage. Now this thing had a staggering manufacturer's suggested retail price of $3,749. And let me tell you, this thing, it definitely held its value pretty well, as people still pay crazy money for these. I'll be honest with you guys, I don't know a lot about Frank Zappa. Usually when I do a signature guitar of someone's, I'll learn a few of their riffs. But never hearing any of Zappa's work previously, I sat down, I listened to 6 songs, but I couldn't pinpoint a certain iconic riff from his music. If I had to describe his music based off of what I've heard, it's kind of like beat poetry, but thrown in with a band where they're just telling you sometimes crazy stories, but it also has guitar fills that are really inspiring, usually quickly played. So I can understand why there's a lot of Zappa fans out there, but I have to plead ignorance for this one because I just haven't had enough time to really dive into it. But some of the tonalities that guy could get, very impressive. And with this Roxy SG, Gibson was trying to recreate those tones. So you're gonna notice you've got these two little flippers on here. These are two-way toggle switches. The first one is for in and out of phase. Facing you is out of phase, but that's only for the middle position. That does nothing for the neck and bridge pickup. And the second one, facing you, is single coil mode, and facing away from is humbucking mode. As you can hear, in single coil mode, you get a little bit of that 60 cycle hum, and it disappears once you select it. Now here's what's kind of interesting with me reviewing this guitar. Not being a huge Zappa fan, I don't have those rose-colored glasses on thinking that this is just the greatest guitar ever. I have my hands and ears telling me this is one of the best, if not the best SG I've had. I mean, I haven't had tons of SGs, but those 70s ones that I've had and some of the modern day ones, they're fantastic. But this thing has something special to it. The true magic to this guitar, tone-wise, is when you are in single coil mode and out of phase. Now, if you're not familiar what in and out of phase will do to your sound, it adds a certain quackiness to your tone. Essentially, imagine a wah pedal, but it's in the up position, that they call it the cocked wah. It nails that vintage tone. It's quacky, it's stratty, but it's on a Gibson SG. So that really is where the magic for these Roxy SGs comes from. So even if you're not a super Frank Zappa fan, I still do suggest trying one of these things out. They're not the fanciest SG. They're kind of weird if you don't understand what they are. But I was super surprised at just how fantastic this guitar sounded. Let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench and take a look at the insides. Inside the Frank Zappa SG, you can see you have markings HC in the neck pickup and SGFZ for SG Frank Zappa in the bridge. I would guess that means Heritage Cherry. I mean, this is kind of a faded cherry color. Pickup-wise, you have the 57 Classic in the neck and the 57 Classic Plus in the bridge. And these have the gray leads because they are 4-conductor. That way they can attach to these 2 mini toggles before going to the pots. Something interesting about these mini toggles, though, is they were clearly made in China. So, yeah, your Gibson USA guitar, it's got Chinese parts in it. But this is what your pickguard looks like. And if you were to put a regular pickguard on here, all this routing would be covered, but I mean, I hope you wouldn't do that to your Roxy SG. But this is why I always tell you on vintage SGs, or really any SG, take the pickguard off to check, because people do weird stuff under SGs. Something else to note is on the back, there is like a little piece of shielding tape here, and it has the number 5 written on it. These utilize a standard Nashville styled bridge, nothing special here. And just in case you're wondering, no, there are no tailpiece studs, so if for whatever reason you wanted to take that off, you would have to drill them. But this is just that beautiful vintage lyre vibrola system. It has Gibson etched on it, as well as the lyre, which is basically a harp. You also have the beautiful witch hat knobs. Inside the back control cavity, it's just your standard Gibson SG wiring. You can see you have 4 Gibson branded pots. It looks like somebody signed that one for 1813, which matches with the date of production. And there's not too much more to go over back here. Something interesting about the tuners for this model is you have the Grover bodies, but you have the vintage Schaller style tips. So that's just kind of an interesting blend of companies there. Spec-wise, you're rocking a pure mahogany body with a rosewood fretboard and a mahogany neck. Now that we've got some of those specs out of the way, just a few final things I want to talk about here is the finish for this, and what I think helps attribute to some of that great tonality and why this thing is so ridiculously resonant is it's a very thin satin finish. Usually on an SG, it would be glossy. But you've got that on the body, so it's really thin, and you've got the same thing kind of on the neck. Now this one, it's been played a lot, so it's been kind of built up to more of a gloss look. And another little thing that's just kind of fun to point out, you know how when we look at modern day Gibsons and there's that little line around the Gibson logo? This is why. This is what those inlays look like. They don't actually inlay the whole thing. They just have these pre-cut ones that has the black surrounding them, and that's why the lines form around those instead of just the letters. So now that we know a little bit more about this very rare Roxy SG, let's go ahead and hear how this one sounds. pretty confident that out of phase only works in the middle position, but I'll show you the different tonalities just in case I'm wrong. Now that we know how this instrument sounds, let's go ahead and review its condition. Someone loved to play this thing because most of these are fairly clean in condition, but this one, it's kind of worn. It's not in the worst shape in the world, but we'll run the light over it so you can see it. Now what's cool about this natural / white cream looking headstock is it is transparent. You can see the wood grain underneath. Especially up here by the G string tuner, you can kind of see a little bit of a wood knot underneath, which was kind of interesting to me. I just oiled the rosewood fretboard, very minimal fret wear, I mean hardly any at all, but this thing definitely has been played. Now with this being a satin finish, it's very prone to deep impression gouges like this. That's from somebody strumming probably pretty hard. They might have had a metal pick or something. So you do have those impressions on the face of the guitar. And even though you can find that on a few areas for this thing, I almost kind of like it because I'm sure the original Roxy was pretty worn. So it's nice having it kind of look like this. You can also see there's some scratch marks on the pickups themselves. Back of the headstock, serial number 1126, looks like 31390, so it is a 2013 model. You've got your Grover tuners with the correct, for this model, Schaller tips. You can see up along here, you've kind of got some dings where they probably hit against the ceiling somewhere. But thankfully there are no breaks, cracks, or repairs. You do have a little bit of stand rash. This looks like the kind you might be able to polish off if you take the time to really scrub that down. You've got a 60s neck profile on these. I guess that's what Zappa preferred. But you do have some indentation / scratch marks along the edges of the neck. Some guy probably had a ring on or something. And you also have some on the other side as well. But, I mean, while you're playing this, do you feel them? No, not really. Unless you're splotcking at them and going, yep, now I feel it. So the feel difference is very minimal. You've kind of got another little black splotch right here. I'm not sure what that is. It might have been from a strap that was on it at one point in time. Back of the instrument, it's got a little bit of buckle worming. Nothing too extreme though. All the electronics appeared to be original. One thing to talk about is, for whatever reason, the original owner took the nut and washers off the front. Yeah, I don't know what that was about either. So when I took this apart, I noticed that there was a nut screwed all the way to the bottom because you're supposed to have two, that way you can adjust how tall these are. So what I did so these would actually stay put is I just removed that one and just kind of screwed them in. So these are a little bit tall, but hey, it works now. Take a look around the edges. So somebody loved playing this thing. It's evident in its condition, but it's not in terrible shape either. Being a thin satin finish, you're not going to see tons of glowing, but you can see what you do want to see. I like how these little mini toggles here, they glow. You can see it glows a little bit more right there, probably because of some sweat has absorbed. And the neck is also glowing the way I would want to see. No breaks, cracks, or repairs on this one. And a beautifully glowing headstock. This instrument comes in a Gibson USA case. I'm not sure what the spray paint job is all about. I don't know if it has anything to do with a reference to Zappa. It looks like it's HIR. I really don't know. So, if you know, leave me a comment. But you've got 4 functioning latches on the front and your handle yet. And the inside is a nice clean white interior. I do believe this is the original case, because I don't think these things got any type of special case with them. And there you can see the imprint of the vibrola, so that tells you it's at least been in this case for a long time. This one also has some case candy with the Gibson warranty. Doesn't look like it was ever filled out. Owner's manual, Gibson USA thing. Hey, silica packet. Truss rod adjustment tool. And apparently you could get a Frank Zappa CD with this voucher here and your serial number and receipt. I don't know if they ever did it, but it's not included. Overall, I was really happy with my experience with this Frank Zappa SG. I didn't really know what to expect from this little weird thing, but I definitely have a newfound respect for this model. So, if you're interested to see how much it sold for, you can check out the link in the description. Thank you, Troglodytes, for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.